Awesome, front row, you know. So last week, he brought his A game, okay? I mean, brought the A game. I mean, he answered so many questions about the fishing tackle that was used, the size of the fish that were caught, who was in the boat, where they were. I mean, what was the Sea of Galilee really called? What is the deepest freshwater man lake? Oh, I can't even remember all the questions he answered. But he brought his A game. So today, I told him we expect A+. All right, so bring the slide up on Fletcher for a second, guys. I want everybody to see this man's credentials. Yes, because he and I were chatting before the class started. That picture, by the way, Bob, was what, 6-7 years ago?
It's photoshopped.
Okay, photoshopped. Yeah, we'll get that up. There you go. Perfect. All right, so you could read a little bit about Bob right there. And, his topic this morning, of course, is mothers who have moved to heaven. And with that, please welcome Bob Fletcher.
Nothing like setting the bar high here this morning. First of all, I want to say happy Mother's Day to all the women. And I was thinking, we have a American Pope elected last week, so it reminded me of this story, which actually is going to be tied into what I'm going to be talking about this morning. Sister Mary of the Little Children's of Mercy, she was visiting all the sick and everything, and she was driving back to Big Mamu, and right outside of town, the car ran out of gas. So she saw a gas station up there, so she walked up to the gas station and she asked the manager, she said, can you lend me a gas can so I can get some gas? My car run out of gas.
We know this.
He goes, oh, I'm so sorry, Sister Mary, but I just lent that thing out and it's not gonna come back for about an hour and a half. So she walks back to the car, and so, she's looking around, what can I do? And she sees on the back seat a bedpan. So she gets the bedpan, goes back fills it up with gas, comes back to the car, and now she's starting to put the gas into the car from the bedpan. About that time, Boudreaux and Thibodeau come out of the bar across the way, and they're watching Sister Mary. And Boudreaux turns to Thibodeau and he goes, my friend, I know Jesus turned water into wine, but if that car starts, I'm going to be in church next Sunday. So it actually does tie into what I want to talk about. So for Mother's Day, I decided that I would look into the New Testament and try to find some stories about mothers and Jesus. And so I'm going to come with 4 stories today. 3 of them are mothers who had an interaction directly with Jesus. And 1, as you will see, had an indirect action with Jesus. But I think we can learn something from all of these mothers and what happened with their interaction with Jesus. So the first one I'm going to use is from John chapter 2. Everybody knows this story. Even if you're not a Christian, you know a couple things about Jesus. He turned water into wine, he walked on water, and he fed the 5,000. So everybody knows those stories. So let's kind of dig a little bit deeper in this story and see if we can maybe draw some things out of it. So I'm in chapter 2 of John, and I'm going to be reading from verses 1 to 11. On the 3rd day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. On the 3rd day. All right, so we got to stop. Not like American weddings in the 21st century. Jewish weddings lasted 7 days. And it was a party the entire time. And it was always held at the bride's home. And everybody in town was invited, and whatever visitors were coming in, family, whatever. And they would literally party for 7 days. So this is the 3rd day of this wedding. Now, you also know when you read John that it's not just surface level. John is like peeling an onion. the deeper you go, the more you have to understand what's going on. Anytime you see the words third day, 3 days in the Bible, it's talking about resurrection. Give you an example. How many days was Jonah in the whale? 3 days. That's a resurrection story. Okay? In fact, that's the only story in the Old Testament that Jesus refers to, is the story of Jonah. But in any case, the third day. So this is a resurrection story. Remember, John wrote his gospel after Matthew, Mark, and Luke had already been written. So John is filling in the spaces. John also wrote in his gospel the 7 signs. We call them miracles. He calls them signs. And what are they signs of? They are signs of Jesus being the Son of God. This is the first sign of the 7. On the third day, there was a wedding, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Now, I don't know. I've been married 54 years, so I'm just going to give you my impression of this. I think all you women all went to the same college, okay? Because Ruth does this to me all the time. She'll give me a declarative statement, and that's not what she means. For an example, the light is out in the hall. Declarative statement. What that means is get up, go get a light bulb, change the light bulb. Well, here's another one she pulled on me the other day. Today is Thursday. All right, today's Thursday. Well, but tomorrow's Friday, and that's when they come pick up the garbage. She'll take the garbage cans to the... So, same thing with Mary, okay? Declarative statement. They have no wine. We think that this might be some kind of family wedding, mainly because Mary must have been in charge of something on this wedding. And you know that in the Jewish lifetime in the first century, shame and embarrassment was a big thing. For them to run out of wine on the third day of 7 would have been a huge embarrassment to this family. So Mary is stepping in and saying to Jesus, "They have no more wine." And Jesus replied to her, "Woman, what has this got to do with me?" Now, I usually say it that way, but that has nothing to do with what Jesus said to Mary. First of all, the word woman is not the way I said it. That's the way we say it, okay? We would say that to, well, I don't know, if I said that to my mom and called her a woman, she'd probably knock me out. But the word woman here is hard to translate because it is it's a title of honor. So he's actually speaking to his mother with honor. And he's basically saying, why have you come to me with this problem? What's it got to do with me and you? And his mother, she must have not either heard it or agreed with it. She just turned around and told the servants, "Do whatever he tells you to do." Kind of interesting. These are the last words recorded by Mary in the New Testament. This is it. This is the last time we ever hear from her. But isn't it something that we ought to be doing all our lives, every day? Shouldn't we be doing whatever Jesus tells us to do? I think that's a pretty good deal. Anyway, she turns to the servants. She goes, "Do whatever he tells you to do." And standing there were 6 stone jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Now, I did a lot of study on this. By the way, they have discovered, and where they thought Cana is, just recently, a priestly home that they think, and it actually had stone jars. The reason that they think it's priestly is because the jars were made of stone. Typically, these jars were made of clay. And so they wouldn't, you couldn't use them over and over. They would break or something. But stone jars mean that they were going to be used over and over and over again. And we know from Leviticus, of all the different laws that they had, 613 of them, well, a whole bunch of them had to do with purification rites. In fact, there were 13 steps to washing your hands properly. And if you didn't do it right in that order, you had to start over again. So they were really particular about this purification thing. And this water that was in these jars were for people to purify themselves ritually, okay? So there are 6 jars. By the way, the number 6 in John, if you remember back in Revelation, the number 666, but 6 means not 7. Okay? 7 is perfect, all right? 7 is complete perfect. 6 means that, well, that was the 6th day was when humans were brought on the earth in the creation. So that's imperfect, okay? So what are we saying? The purification laws that were in Leviticus don't really perfect you to salvation? Maybe. Hold that thought. So 6 jars. Jesus told them, fill the jars up to the brim with water. Don't just put a little bit of water. I mean, we're talking 30 gallons, that's 180 gallons of water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, now draw some out. Take it to the chief servant. And they took it. And when the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said, look, everyone serves the good wine first. And after everybody has had enough to drink, or too much to drink, they bring out the lesser wine. Right? I mean, I don't know, I don't drink, but I'm kind of thinking that at some point you can't tell the difference between the good and the bad. He said, but you have kept the good wine until now. Jesus did this as the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee and received his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So what's this story all about? Well, first of all, Jesus has not started his ministry. And Mary knows exactly who Jesus is and that he needs to get started. So they come to this wedding, and there's this situation, and Mary knows that Jesus can fix it by using his power. Jesus is reluctant to use it because he knows that the minute he does this, word's going to get out that he can do these kind of miracles, and all of a sudden now his life changes starting at this point. His ministry starts from this point. Mary urges him to take that step and do it. In fact, Jesus even said, my time has not yet come. What he means by that is that my hour has not yet come. What he's talking about is there's going to be a time, we always know that the hour is the passion of Jesus' suffering and dying on the cross. And he's just saying, look, I'm not ready to start. And she goes, yeah, you are. Start now. So it's Mary's faithful trust in who Jesus is, her faithful trust in knowing that he's going to start his ministry. And so he shows the crowd his power. Well, what about turning the water into wine? What has that got to do with anything? Well, wine, as we know, at the Last Supper, is used to signify what? Jesus' blood, right? So it's a foreshadowing, third day, resurrection, new kingdom, new creation. Wine is the blood of Jesus going to offer the salvation to all. So this is a story of foreshadowing and also a story of a mother who says, you know, I know you can do it. I know who you are. I trust you're going to take care of this situation. And oh, by the way, you're going to start your ministry. So, mother of Jesus at the wedding of Cana. The second one I want to talk about is one that is kind of controversial. I read this one wrong all my life, and so I want to share it with you. This is in Matthew chapter 15. And this is about the Syrophoenician woman who meets Jesus. So let me set the stage for you. First of all, she's a Canaanite. Canaanites were hated by the Jewish people. In fact, the rabbis called them dogs, okay? And the Greek word that they used was a mongrel cur street dog, okay? They were the personification of sin and evil. You did not pay any attention whatsoever to Canaanites, who were, by the way, Gentiles, and you would have nothing to do with them. So, background number one. Background number two, whether you're a Gentile or you are Jewish, women don't talk to men in public, period. You certainly don't talk to a rabbi during the day in public. So here we go. Here's the story. To also set this up, Jesus has now moved from Galilee into the edge of Tyre and Sidon. So he is in Gentile country. Okay? So here we go. Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came over to him and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David." Well, first of all, you don't do that during the day. Second of all, how did this Canaanite woman who worshiped idols, the Canaanites worship all different kinds of idols, how did she know who Jesus was? Because she calls him Lord, Son of David, which is a messianic title. So somehow, somewhere, she has enough interest to find out who Jesus is. And obviously, she believes in who he is, which is the Messiah. "Have mercy on me, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." Now, I'm not going to get into the idea of demons and children. There's certain things that I just don't understand, and I just write that one off as I don't understand that. But I'm sure that somewhere along the line, the devil and evil can take over people, and it doesn't necessarily stop just at adults. But in any case, she had this demon, this daughter. So this mother is asking and pleading and shouting to Jesus, "Have mercy on me. My daughter needs help." But he didn't answer her. He just stood there. And his disciples came up and urged him, "Send her away, for heaven's sake. She keeps shouting at us. All she's doing is bothering us. She's going berserk. She's screaming and hollering. Just tell her to leave." And he answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Well, Jesus, that sounds a little rude. I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. It's a true story. That's true. I think he wasn't talking to her at this point. I think he was talking to the disciples. And I think he was simply talking to the disciples and saying what was already in their head. I can just see this. Why is this Canaanite idol-worshiping dog asking Jesus to do something when we know he's not called to help the Gentiles? He's called to help us. And he's sensing this, and so he's playing the disciple. He's mocking the disciples. He's setting something up here. But she came and knelt before him, grabbed his knees. She knelt down and grabbed his knees. "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." That's pretty tough. Jesus said that. He called a woman a dog. Now, I told you that there are two Greek words for dog. One is mangy cur, street dog. The other one, which Jesus uses here, is puppy dog. Okay, like these people didn't have pets, by the way. They didn't have pet dogs. No such thing as a pet dog in first century Israel. But they did have dogs that they would let to come in the house. And so I guess this is one of those little puppy house dogs. It doesn't make it any easier if Jesus called her a puppy, okay? Hey guys, tonight, this afternoon, somehow turn to your wife or loved one and say, you're just as cute as a bulldog puppy dog. No, don't work. Right? So he's saying again what he thinks that the disciple, well, not thinks, he knows the disciples are thinking. Why in the world should he even she's a dog. We're not going to give her anything. What? We're the chosen people. The Canaanites, they're evil. So he knows they're thinking this. And she said, Lord, even the dogs, even the puppies, eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Now, what in the world is that all about? Well, you know that they didn't have napkins back in those days. Okay, that comes later. So they ate with their hands. And so let's say you're eating with your hands and they get greasy and they get, dirty. Well, there was white bread on the table, and that was used to wipe your hands. You didn't eat that bread. So you take that white bread and you do like this to get your hands clean, and what would happen? Crumbs would fall down on the floor, and the puppy dog would come and get the crumbs. Okay, so that's the vision that she's saying. Yeah, you can call me a dog if you want to, but even the puppy dogs every now and then get a crumb. She's at her wit's end. She's got nothing left to go to. She's got nobody to help her. She's got Jesus. He's the only solution to this problem. Then Jesus answered her, woman, here's that word again. It's not woman, it's honor. He's giving a Canaanite woman a title of honor. That should have gotten the disciples to perk up real quick. Hey, this ain't just about you guys. This is about Gentiles and Jews. Jesus answered her, woman, great is your faith. Only Jesus told two people in the New Testament that their faith was great. Both of them Gentiles. Roman centurion who came to Jesus and said, my servant is dying. I know you can heal him. Jesus said, because of your great faith, he's healed. And the Syrophoenician woman, he called her faith great. He's calling two Gentiles that have great faith. What does he tell disciples? Remember the storm? When they got in the boat, he stopped the boat, he goes, you of little faith? He uses little faith to disciples more than he says that they have faith. You have great faith. Let it be done as you wish. And the daughter was healed instantly. Now think about this. This woman had everything against her. Everything. Her origin, her religion, her culture, her notoriety, and she was a woman. She's got everything against her. But what does she do because of her daughter? She persists with Jesus. Not even taking an offhand remark that, we're not taking the bread out of children's mouth, the Jewish children, the Jewish people. I'm not taking the bread out of their mouths to feed a dog. And she goes, well, even the dogs get some crumbs every once in a while. She's not going away until Jesus takes care of this. Persistence, mothers. What does that teach us? That we should be persistent, right? Even when we're in challenging times, even when you're in challenging times, even when you think that God is not listening to your prayers, keep going. Be persistent. Okay? So the third one's also from Matthew, and it is an interesting story. I'm pulling the ones that we don't normally talk about, but this is a good one. Got to set this one up. This is in Matthew chapter 20. But I can't do, starting with verse 20, but I can't do Matthew 20:20 unless I do Matthew 19 first. And at the end of chapter 19, this is what Matthew says. This is what Jesus says. I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man is seated on the throne of his glory, you, disciples, who have followed me, will also be on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So Jesus is telling them, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to die, I'm going to be resurrected. By the way, he told them that 3 times on the way to Jerusalem. They didn't remember any of that, because where were they when it all happened? They were locked up in a room somewhere other than John and the women. But in any case, he tells them, at the end times, when the renewal of all things comes, you who follow me will be on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he goes into a story about a landowner who goes out and hires people. And you all know that story. He hires some people at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then again at 10 and 2. And finally, he hires somebody at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which is only 1 hour before they have to quit. And then when it comes time to pay everybody, he pays them all the same amount. And the guys who started at 7 o'clock in the morning go, whoa, 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 hang on here a minute. We've worked like 13 hours today, and this guy's only worked 1 hour. We ought to be getting some more. He goes, well, wait. The contract was, I would pay you 1 denarius if you come to work. So I fulfilled my contract. In parentheses, I called the shot. Okay, I'm the one who calls the shot here. I made the decision. It's my money. It's my grace. It's my mercy. You should be happy that you're getting the grace and mercy. They should be happy that they're getting the grace and mercy. And then he says something very interesting. He says, the one who will be the greatest will be the last. Right? The one who will be first will be last. Last will be first. He says that 4 or 5 times. Now, let's go to Matthew chapter 20, verse 20. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Now, who is the mother of the sons of Zebedee? The sons of Zebedee are James and John. The father's name is Zebedee. They are in a fishing business, like we heard last week, with Peter and Andrew. They are partners. The sons of Zebedee. The mother, if you read carefully, there are 4 verses in the Gospels that hint at the fact that Salome is the mother of James and John. Salome is also the sister of Mary. So this is Jesus' aunt. By the way, James and John is first cousins. Okay? Jesus didn't just walk along the Sea of Galilee and go say, you follow me, hey, you follow me, hey, you follow me, hey, you. James and John were his first cousins, for heaven's sakes. And if you don't think he didn't know Peter and Andrew before, of course he did. Now, they didn't know that he was the Messiah, but they certainly probably knew him. So here's the mother of the sons of Zebedee, came to him with her sons. That means she's in front, they're behind. If you read this in Matthew, in Mark, it's kind of interesting. Mark says that James and John asked Jesus this question. Matthew is so embarrassed that this question even came up that he adds the fact that it was the mother who asked the question, not the disciples. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee, kneeling before him, she asked a favor. He said, what do you want? She said, declare that these 2 sons of mine, right there, these 2 sons of mine, will sit one at your right hand and one at your left in the kingdom. You just told us that they're going to be on thrones, so how about we pick the thrones? I want James and John on the right and left. What mother doesn't want the best for their... Come on, let's don't be so hard on her, right? She wants the best. Every mother wants the best for their children. Unfortunately, we live in a civilization that we measure the greatest by how much money you make and who you are and how much power you got. That's kind of how we play the game. But that's not what he's teaching here, okay? Get ready for the teaching, because he's teaching the disciples something. They didn't get it in the story that he just told them about the landowner. So now he's going to teach them again the same thing. I want the right hand and the left hand for your kingdom. Give her credit that she at least knows that Jesus is going to come into the kingdom. He's going to have a kingdom. But Jesus answered, you have no idea what you are asking. Yeah, you think that it's all I got to do is snap my fingers and James and John get to sit on both sides? That's not how we measure greatness in this kingdom that you're talking about. Are you able to drink the cup? He turns to James and John. Are you able to drink the cup that I'm about to drink? What's the cup? The suffering. If you will be on the left and then the right, are you willing to suffer? Because it's going to come. And they had said, well, of course we're going to do that. Of course we're able. They got no idea what's coming up. In fact, James, by the way, is the first martyred disciple.